Hola.
Hello. Alright. I never know how to start a video. It's always a weird issue I have. Now, I haven't done a video in a really long time. And I know not very many people watch me. But maybe I should start doing some more so I can maybe get myself out there. Although, I mean, with the way YouTube is now, I doubt it. But, it is what it is. Maybe I'll go to another platform. We'll see. Anyway, now, I want to preface this by saying I'm not in the can for Trump. And what I mean by that is not that I did vote for him. So before people go, oh, you didn't vote for him? No, I did. I mean, it's a pretty important election, and I'm not going to vote third party because, I mean, look at the choices. The only third party I'd vote for would be the Libertarians, and they've been a nightmare with Joe Jorgensen and all that. Plus, they don't have any chance of winning. Plus, I just knew I had to stop Biden. That was the thing. It's like it's just after this year, I can't justify not voting for Donald Trump, and not because I love the guy. There's a lot of issues I have with him, but what I mean by not being in the can for Trump is what I just said in the previous paragraph that I have issues with the guy, a lot of them. Mainly on policy things. I don't give a crap how Trump talks. In fact, I kind of find it entertaining. I don't really, people in politics, they care too much about what someone says, what someone does. I don't really care about that. What I care about is what they do. And I have to say, as much as I am disappointed some of Trump's policy decisions and lack of promises kept on certain issues, mainly the warfare state and things like that. And his fiscal policy's been atrocious. He spent more money than any other president has in one term so far. Which, I mean, is par for the course. Obama spent more than any other president, and Bush spent more than any. But the point, what I'm proud of Trump on, let's get to that. What I'm proud of him on is his response to election fraud, and there's been a lot of it this time around. There was a lot of it last time, I'm sure. And there's been a lot of it in the past. This is not a one-off thing. This is something that's been going on for a while. And so I found this NBC News video. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it through the whole way to the end card. I'm not going to play the end card because I can't stand Lester Holt with his fake voice. Rah, 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 rah. But I'm going to play it through to the end card. So just ignore the ridiculous bias. They don't even hide it anymore. It's insane. I got enough battery. Just ignore that for a little bit. And just listen to what they're saying. Listen to the coverage. Obviously, the coverage is very left-wing slant in terms of, like, really not very left-wing and like, oh, it's communist or anything. Because it's not. It's establishment democratic, neoliberal, progressive politics. But it's definitely a hard democratic slant.
Tonight, the legal battle lines are hardening over the president's virtually impossible effort to try to invalidate the election. More than 100 House Republicans are now supporting a long-shot Texas lawsuit, also supported by the president, aimed at overturning the results in 4 swing states Joe Biden won. Pennsylvania's Democratic Attorney General called the lawsuit a seditious abuse of judicial process, and even some Republicans blasted it.
I do not understand the legal theory.
At a Hanukkah celebration overnight, President Trump again falsely claiming he can win.
Here are certain very important people. If they have wisdom and if they have courage, we're going to win this election.
Meanwhile, new details about the criminal investigation into the finances of Hunter Biden. A source familiar with the investigation says it began in 2018, and authorities are looking at his business dealings in China, including whether he violated tax and money laundering laws. Hunter Biden's business dealings in China and Ukraine while his father was vice president, a frequent target of President Trump.
Where's Hunter?
Hunter Biden saying the investigation will show, quote, "I handled my affairs legally and appropriately." Meanwhile, President-elect Biden tapping former Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice to run his domestic policy council.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking.
I don't care about your stupid... no, get off of there. I don't care about your stupid end card. I'm Lester Holt here, and I just want to say I'm so disingenuous I decided to do a fake voice. It's my reporting voice, and I swear it's real. He does his reporting voice, and we're all supposed to pretend that these people actually talk like this. I love how they do that on the news. Nowhere else would that be acceptable, except maybe a party with rich people in Hollywood or Great Britain. Everyone talking with like a David Attenborough accent. Oh yes, goody goody. Or in London somewhere. In a rich neighborhood in London or in Hollywood. Oh, hi. I'm just Oh, hi, how are you? Would you like some food? I'm just famished. There's such an act with the news. It's all theater. And the lady talking on there like she's really serious. And it's like no one talks with that robotic sort of cadence. It's all fake. That's very interesting. Another thing that's very interesting, bringing up Hunter Biden, they didn't have to do that. Why'd they do that? It's like, are you trying to shoot yourselves in the foot? Just why would you even bring it up? Why? Now that's in people's heads, and now they're going to go, oh yeah, that Hunter Biden thing. A lot of the people who are watching these videos are just hate watching it. They're hate watching right-wingers. So, let's go back. And we're going to go through this, and we're going to debunk some viewpoints that are expressed, and some obvious biases. I mean, this woman is a horrible reporter, because she's supposed to be the objective one, right? Even the hosts who say they're sort of objective, even they are supposed to at least give a week. They're supposed to have like sort of an obvious bias, but they just barely conceal it. People like, well, that's what they're supposed to do anyway. Like, I'll give you an example. Someone like Wolf Blitzer. Wolf Blitzer does a good job of this, good job in terms of like what the average person who watches cable news sees. That's the thing is, I would venture to say most of the people who watch cable news are pretty low IQ. Either that or they're bored. People don't watch cable news to stay informed. Have you ever talked to an intelligent person? Someone who, they don't even have to be well versed in politics, but they know enough about it. They still have some interest in it. We're not even going to bother talking about people who are apolitical, who don't have no interest in politics. Those people, I have no use for, and I mean that. I don't feel as though I can talk to them about anything serious. I can't talk because if they don't take politics seriously, that means they don't take a lot of things seriously. You say, well, that's a bit of an overstatement. Maybe. But I just don't even bother with those people because they don't care. That sense of apathy usually carries over into other things. If you're apathetic about politics, if you're not interested in politics, you're not interested in a lot of things, and you're probably a very immoral person with amoral values. And I just don't have time for you. I'm not really friends with people who are apolitical. Now, I'm friends with people who are not really interested in politics, but know a little bit, care about a few issues. I have a friend, one of my best friends, not very political, but he's a hunter, and is very interested in hunting, and that's an interest, so he cares about the Second Amendment. Not very political on other issues, but tends to vote right based on that issue. Doesn't really know what he's doing, may not even vote every election, doesn't really care that much, but if he is voting, he's voting right. Strangely enough, registered Democrat, because of a career choice. I'm not going to get too far into that if my friend is listening, which he's not. But if he was, he'd know I was talking about him. All right. Getting back to the video. Or getting back to these, it's this lady is supposed to be concealing her bias to a certain extent. Now, you could still frame it in a way that has a left-wing slant, has a Democrat establishment, NBC News slant, right? But she goes a little too far because she's trying to be welcome into the club. Ma'am, you're probably not going to have your own show. People who have their own shows right now, they're keeping them for a while, you know? But that's what she's trying to go for, I'm sure. She's trying to move up the ladder. Yeah, I'll just throw my left-wing bias out there so I can move up the ladder. Cutthroat business. Politics is cutthroat. News is news media is cutthroat. Media in general, pretty cutthroat. So keep that in mind as we go through this. I know I've talked for a solid 5 minutes, sort of setting this all up, but it's important.
Tonight, the legal battle lines are hardening over the president's virtually impossible effort to try to invalidate the election.
I know we're only 6 seconds in, but I just got to say this. Already setting it up, virtually impossible. And while it's obvious that's her bias speaking, that's probably the only truthful thing she says in this. And it is virtually impossible from the outset. But it may not be as implausible as people think. A friend of mine told me, well, if you believe there's a deep state, he's a libertarian. So obviously he believes in some form of that. I don't know what he's like. If you believe there's a deep state, then that means they know who the president's going to be 10 years ahead of time. I said, I don't know about that. I said, really, you think Trump? You think they knew? Yup. And I was like, no. It's just no. There's no way. There's no way. Because he wasn't in the club. He may have been in the second tier. But he was never... He may have been a friend of a friend, but he was never in the club. He's always kept at an arm's distance. There's a reason that Trump was doing reality shows and golfing at golfing at Mar-a-Lago and all that stuff. There's a reason that you didn't hear a lot about him trying to get some policy passed with these presidents and stuff. He didn't have meetings with these people. There's a reason that he donated to Hillary Clinton and then turned around and just went hard after her. And you don't go hard after Hillary Clinton. You don't call her, all kinds of names and basically accuse her of murder, which is legit. So I think he's wrong on that. And also knowing 10 years ahead of time, no way. There's no way they manipulate the electoral system that much to where they know way ahead of time who's going to be in office, because if they did, there would be some whistleblowers. There would be some evidence. There wouldn't be no evidence of that. I've not heard. And I look into people who are very, very in tune with this conspiracy stuff. I listen to a lot of, I'm subscribed to 3 channels who have anarchist hosts on YouTube, okay, on their shows. If anyone has any conspiracies about it, if anyone knows anything about it, it'd be those guys. And there's some of their biggest anarchist names: Eric July, Dave Smith, and Pete Quinones. Okay, you can look those guys up. And I'm not an anarchist, and I'm not I wouldn't consider myself a libertarian, although I have pretty much the same values as them. But I do share a lot of similar values with them, and they would know. They would know about this kind of stuff. They have quite the connections, and they've never once talked about it. Oh, they're controlled opposition. Yes, okay, everyone's controlled opposition. Like at a certain point, you have to trust someone. But getting back to this, the framing is interesting because she can't wait to say virtually impossible. And that's not her role. She's right. Because, let's be honest, this legal system is corrupt. And I'm very disappointed in a lot of conservatives. A lot of people on the right, people like Crowder going, this system works. And, his people like Gerald on his show go, this system works. It doesn't work. We got to let the system work. No, we don't. We have to bully the system. Because if we don't, it's going to do what it usually does and favor those with the power and those with the influence and those who are favored by the establishment and the deep state, which are one and the same. Okay? So we have to understand that. But getting back to what this woman said, she goes, virtually impossible. That's not for her to decide. That's for the pundits to talk about after she gets done with her little reporting thing. So very interesting.
More than 100 House Republicans are now supporting a long-shot Texas lawsuit, also supported by the president, aimed at overturning the results in 4 swing states Joe Biden won.
How she says that. Aimed at overturning the results in 4 states Joe Biden won. Now, most of the electoral votes haven't been certified yet. And she's already claiming that he won. Now, Donald Trump didn't just win. He had to get certified. And there were people who held out, I'm sure, with this horrible media back in 2016 when he won. Because we didn't know yet. And obviously, you don't. And remember the whole thing with Jill Stein? And I believe it was Wisconsin. Shocker, Wisconsin once again has issues. And yeah, it was Wisconsin. I'm pretty darn sure it was either Wisconsin or Minnesota. I think it was Wisconsin. And that whole thing, which wouldn't have mattered anyway, because it only would have taken away 6 electoral votes, which is not going to get Trump out of office. remember how the glowing coverage and, oh, Jill Stein, I actually won that state, not Trump. And Hillary Clinton was sort of backing her, like, yeah, sure, whatever, because Hillary Clinton really wanted to win it. She wanted to sort of steal Jill Stein's spot, but she wanted to steal the fame and glory from Jill Stein, steal spotlight, which didn't really work because no one likes Hillary Clinton. But that happened. A lot of people forgot about that because of how crazy these last 4 years have been. But that did happen. Oh, well, you gotta wait, and they did recounts, and it doesn't matter. Trump still won Wisconsin narrowly, very narrowly, like 0.6%, but he won it. Saying that Joe Biden won now usually yes, in a presidential election you go, this guy won. But if it's close, maybe not. In certain close elections, we haven't done that. We didn't do that in 2000. Now, typically, in an election like this, if someone supposedly wins like Joe Biden has supposedly won, you go, yeah, I guess he won. But with all this stuff that's come out, you might want to reel that back in. And go, okay, we'll see. And a lot has come out, so you can't really do that now, can you? So just saying Joe Biden won at this point is dishonest because you don't know. Typically, and even in the past, you didn't know, but you were pretty sure, right? Like, okay, when Barack Obama won in 2008, you're like, yeah, Barack Obama won. You're like, yeah, okay, pretty obvious. Makes sense with the cultural moment, first minority president, first black president. Never mind the fact that he was part white, but not really, but we'll take, people are like, we'll take him. All right, fine. And I will admit that's a historical moment. Now, does it really matter? Not really. I mean, who cares what the race of someone is, right? But it was a big deal to the left. All right, fine. Kind of proves that the left was a bunch of racists. But yeah, sure, whatever. And by the left, I don't mean the average voter. I mean the people who run the party, the Democratic Party. Even if they're not really they're a little, they're a little bit more racist than people on the other side. They constantly talk about race. But when Obama won, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. All right, and not a lot of people that I knew one person in particular who was like, nah, you didn't vote fraud. But not very many people, a lot of people accept it. They're like, okay, he won. With this, you're not seeing it as much because there's a lot of evidence of some screwery. Let's continue.
Pennsylvania's Democratic Attorney General called the lawsuit a seditious abuse of judicial process, and even some Republicans blasted it.
I do not understand the legal theory.
At a Hanukkah celebration overnight, President Trump again falsely claiming he can win.
All right, look at that. They always point to one offhand Republican, Oh, look at this Republican over here. He said, I do not understand the legal process, which is clearly a clip out of context. It sounds like what he's saying is, I do not understand the legal process, but he actually supports it. But he doesn't understand how they're going to do it. Maybe that's not what he's saying, but that's what it sounds like to me. And that's without the context. And then like, oh, this Hanukkah celebration, and that's important because who cares when he said it or where he said it. You can just look up Trump says this and you'll find it. At a Hanukkah celebration, try to sort of be like, see, he just can't help himself. He's so unhinged, which, okay, that's sort of fair. But it's not, again, it's not your job. It's not your job to do that, Miss Lady. You're supposed to be the objective one. Falsely claiming, falsely claims he can win. They don't even give themselves an out. Like, Trump claims he can win despite evidence. No, they just go straight up. Falsely claims. Well, it's not false. Because there is a chance. Saying he can win, he's giving himself an out. But you guys are not giving him an out. Let's continue.
Very important people. If they have wisdom and if they have courage, we're going to win this election.
Meanwhile,
That is true. If certain people have wisdom and they have courage, yeah. Why not? With all the evidence, there are certain people who, if they actually have the guts to fight this, he can win. That's not false. They have wisdom if they have courage. And even if you don't agree with the evidence, if certain people say, no, we're not going to let Joe Biden win, then guess what? That's still true. What he said was not untrue. Yes, certain people can decide, the Supreme Court can decide whether or not Trump wins. What's false about that? And I don't want to be presented as this avid supporter of Trump. No. I mean, he should have prepared more for this. He did some executive order in 2018 for the election for like foreign interference. And that's it. That's all he's done in preparation for this. That's pretty lame. So I'm not going to refuse to criticize the guy. No. I have issues with him. And I'm also not going to say, he's going to win. I'm also not going to, believe a lot of these YouTubers who go, I'm a prophet and God told me. No. Most of those people are frauds. I'm going to just stay out of that. I'm going to stay away from it. I'm just going to, sure, I trust God. I trust that he'll do what's best for this country. Or he won't. It's his choice. I don't really care. I don't care where it goes. I mean, I do. I do care, but I'm not too worried because I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go about my life. And these lockdowns continue and stuff. And they get worse. Eventually, I'm just going to start going out of my house. I'm going to go get a gun pretty soon here. And I might just start carrying. That's my plan, to get a gun within the next few months. And before they make it illegal. And I'm going to start packing. That's not a threat. I'm not threatening anyone. Just for protection and just for my rights. But if the cops try to come arrest me because I'm not wearing a mask. And it's one thing if I'm in someone's business and they say, hey, you need to wear, fine. But if I choose to live my life the way I want to, go about my day, I'm told to stay in my house, I refuse to do it. I'm told to wear a mask when I'm in a public space or I'm in my own house or whatever. Or I'm in a business where the owner doesn't care, the owner doesn't want me to do it. I will not be carted off to jail without fighting. And if they do cart me off to jail, I will fight it in the courts as much as possible. And I don't have a lot of money. I don't have the money to pay for legal fees or something, but I'll find a pro bono lawyer, whatever I got to do. And people need to have that attitude. Like, we have got to draw a line somewhere. And I understand if you're just trying to get by right now, but if this election crap doesn't work out, What do you have to lose? You're going to lose everything anyway. I'll talk more about that towards the end. Let's continue because this video is now half an hour long and I want to wrap it up here.
New details about the federal criminal investigation into the finances of Hunter Biden. A source familiar with the investigation says it began in 2018, and authorities are looking at his business dealings in China, including whether he violated tax and money laundering laws.
Why they moved on to this, I have no idea. Like they didn't have to bring this up. If they're supposed to be covering for Biden too, but they shoot themselves in the foot because they think there's so much narcissism with these people in the media that they think I'm gonna address it and I'm gonna debunk it because I am so important and I am so much better than these stupid conspiracy QAnon. And obviously, it's a mischaracterization, and obviously they're lying. But they think that they have that kind of power, too. It's like, we all know you're corrupt. You're not fooling anybody. And the last thing you do is bring something to attention that you want to keep secret. And then say, there's nothing to see here. You don't say there's nothing to see here. You just cover it up. See, that's the problem with dictators. I mean, it's a problem for them. It's great for us. The problem with dictators, the problem with narcissistic elites, these corrupt political pundits and politicians, people in the media and Hollywood and all that, is they can't help themselves. They're so addicted to power. It's such a drug that they think they have to just... sometimes they will do things to gain more power and to dominate people more at their own expense, instead of just waiting and being patient. They just don't have it. The last thing you want to do if you're trying to cover something up is talk about it. And for the most part, the media hasn't covered this that much, but they can't help but at least have a segment on it. We have to talk about it. And I'm sure if some people say, well, that's because they want to look legitimate. Maybe, but I think they know. I know they're disconnected from the populace, but they're not that stupid. They've seen the comments on Twitter, despite censorship. There's still millions of people commenting. You're not going to censor all that. They've seen people talking crap about them, talking about how the media is corrupt. You think they don't know? They're not trying to prove their legitimacy by saying, "See, we still covered it." Maybe that's part of it, but I think the biggest part of it is they are so arrogant that they think we're gonna bludgeon you with this point that we're making. See, there is nothing to see here, and we're covering it. See, and there's nothing. And the problem is that just causes the Streisand effect, and people look into it more.
Hunter Biden's business dealings in China and Ukraine while his father was vice president, a frequent target of President Trump.
Where's
And they go
Hunter?
right back to demonizing. Oh, it's a frequent target of President Trump. Yeah, because this is what we're talking about. Now, I will be fair. Play devil's advocate here. This is not that big of a scandal in terms of... It is a big scandal. That's not what I'm saying. Before people go, oh, I'm going to tune out now. But it is... It's not that big of a scandal in terms of government corruption. Stuff like this happens all the time. In fact, it's very common. This is not a small scandal on a political, when it comes to, political corruption. It's big, but it's not, it's not Barack Obama, bombing weddings big. And everyone knows that, and yet we still don't really know the details to that. A lot of that stuff's been kept secret, but we know enough. It's not as big of a scandal as threatening world leaders in order to get diplomatic favors. It's not as big of a scandal as starving Yemeni children by supporting the Saudi Arabian genocide in Yemen. Or the genocide by the Saudi Arabians in Yemen. No problem with that. But people are attracted to this kind of stuff, which really shows you where the headspace in America is right now. We have much bigger issues and things like this. But while we're on the issue of government corruption, this is a good place to start. If you hear cracking sound, it's just my knuckles. Sorry. So let's continue. Let's just
Hunter Biden saying the investigation will show, quote, I handled my affairs legally and appropriately.
I don't care what he said. I just don't. That's nothing wrong with her reporting. That's just a personal thing. Let's see who this lady is.
Meanwhile, President-elect Biden tapping former Obama.
I love how they always sound different on this mic than they did when they were narrating. It's like, oh, all of a sudden you got rid of all the background noise, but then you go back to her. Kristen Welker. Oh, yeah, I've heard of her. She's a joke. Blah, blah, blah. All right, I missed what she said there.
Hunter Biden saying the investigation will show, quote, I handled my affairs legally and appropriately. Meanwhile, President-elect Biden tapping former Obama national security.
He's not president-elect. There's no office of the president-elect either. And when people said that, you know what Biden did? He made an office of the president-elect. You're such a joke. In the meantime, President-elect Biden. And by the way, look at how... That's probably not the best way to describe this woman. Bitchy her face looks. It's obvious she's angry. Angry that people don't notice me more. Angry that people don't think I'm more important. These people are like that. You have to realize, imagine you on a bad day, and that's your job. Okay? You say, wait, what? Just think about it for a second. You on a bad day, but it's your job. Here's what I mean by that. You ever had a day where you've had a lot of acting out? You dealt with a lot on your plate. Maybe that's part of the reason you're stressed, whatever. But you were a real piece of garbage that day. Just really horrible person. You're just mean-spirited and rude and very much a prick to everyone around you. You ever have one of those days where you're just a lot meaner than normal? Okay? And you come out of the end of that day, you're like, whew, that was rough. I shouldn't have done that. You gotta apologize, all this type of stuff. Maybe you have to apologize several times that day, and you apologize the next day. Okay, imagine having one of those days. That's your job now. It's these people's job to be outraged, to be mean. And it's these people's job to be appalled and to pretend that they care about something they don't care about. And then, when someone calls them out for it, they get angry. Now imagine you're constantly getting called out for it. Imagine you're vying for power in this corporate news environment. You're trying to climb up the ladder, but there's people in front of you. You're mad at them. And then imagine you have to report for those people you despise. And all you get from them is, thanks, Kristen. In other news, and you're seen as unimportant. You're seen as the background person. Imagine all that jealousy You're already pretty vain because, again, that's your job. It just makes... Now imagine you have all that going through your head. All that in your personality. Knowing that you're a piece of garbage. And then you gotta go on the news and report to the people you despise on top of all that. Your face is gonna be a little bitchy. You're gonna be a little bit of a jerk. You know? You're gonna treat people just a little bit worse. You're just gonna have that overall tone and look of bitchiness. Okay? That is why so many people are Karens. So many people are afraid. And we have to abide by the rules because they're ridiculed by people like this. People like this seem as though they're authoritative and they know more. And because of that, a lot of people, the average person goes, well, I don't know. And someone like this comes along. They go, all right, geesh. Even if they have their doubts, they'll fall in line. And that's why we have this coronavirus thing. Getting back to that. We have to start standing up for our rights now, or it's just going to snowball. And you go, but there's not enough people yet. And you're right, there's not. Public opinion's not on our side. But if someone doesn't do it, no one will. You know, at a certain point, I know it sounds redundant. Someone does, oh, wow. Yeah, no joke. It's okay, fine. Otherwise it'd be an oxymoron. Okay. You don't have to be a dick about my grammar. The point is that at a certain point we have to take responsibility. At a certain point we have to, as a nation, as a people, realize that our rights are being stolen. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen all at once. Somebody has to do something, and you're starting to see that, and that's great, but it's not enough. More people got to get out there, and there are more people than you think in our corner. And then you drag in the normies. You see how that happens? But there has to be a big enough coalition of us that they look over and go, I'm joining too. Because the whole safety in numbers thing, a lot of people are just afraid. And they don't know enough too. They need to be educated. And you say, well, why are you talking about this coronavirus? What does that have to do with election fraud? It has everything to do with it because it was the whole premise for it. Okay? And I'm not doing this because I care so much about American elections. Look, we've been electing pigs for presidents for a long time. Okay? That's not going to fix the system. But it is a win because it's a sign to not just the Democrats, but also the Republicans, and even to Donald Trump, that we won't take their crap. We won't take his crap. I think what we can do, those of us who are interested in some sort of liberty movement, whatever you are, if you're conservative, or if you're just someone who thinks we need less government, okay? Which, by the way, is most people. Even liberals agree we need to shrink the government. Now, where we need to shrink the government, yeah, that's another debate. Okay. But everyone agrees, just about, in this country, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 80% of the population or higher, agrees that we need to reduce the size and impact of the system because it is incredibly corrupt, and more of the system is not going to fix the system. That's just not going to happen. So, people in the liberty movement need to start getting together and start fighting. You know, there's just, at a certain point, there's just not an excuse anymore. And we're the example. Okay? Those of us who've been calling this crap out, we're the examples. We have to start it. And eventually it'll be unstoppable. And I think this final point, with Donald Trump, I think we can do that. Donald Trump, the great thing about Donald Trump is we can nudge him. He is malleable. We can actually push him towards more liberty, regardless of, oh, but I'm disappointed. He hasn't done the right thing. Fine. Right, he has been horrible on some issues. But Donald Trump is not in the club. And that is the first time that's happened since Eisenhower. That is very important. We can push him more right. Libertarians never gonna get elected. One, because every freaking candidate they've put up since Ron Paul has been unlikable as hell, and just about everyone before Ron Paul has been unlikable as hell. So you got that. You don't have a chance of winning because people are too worried about Democrats winning. Here's the thing. It's not like Republicans overnight in one election cycle are going to go, we're all going to move to the Libertarian Party and vote for that person. That'd be great. That's never going to happen. What's going to happen is one chunk will move over, then another chunk, then another chunk, and people know that, so they just don't do it. Because there'll be 5-6 election cycles minimum where the Democrats just dominate, and you see big state program after program, more lockdowns, more masks, and people don't want that. So right now they're in the fight of their lives. If you're going to make your move, you should have made your move back in the 70s and 80s. You didn't. You screwed up. I'm not supporting your party now. If you're going to make your move, your time has passed. Now those Republicans that lean towards liberty, towards libertarianism, towards those who are fiscal conservatives, things like that, who probably would have supported you, right now they're in the fight of their lives. They just don't want a Democrat in, and I agree with them. I'm going to vote with them because I just don't want a Democrat in. You say what you will, Democrats and Republicans are all the same. No, they're not. One party is worse than the other. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not both horrible. They're both horrible. But one is a lot worse. And I don't think you want that. It's very, very tone deaf to go, they're about the same. You, as a liberty-minded individual, someone who knows politics better, and they're the party that's more educated on politics than any other party, they should know better than to say that, and they do know better. But a lot of them are actually leftists masquerading as liberty-loving people. So there's that too. A lot of them are, the cosmopolitan, socially liberal type who goes, yeah, but I like less taxes. Well, everyone likes less taxes. That's not enough. Anyway, that's a whole nother rabbit trail. The point is that we can't go that way. Well, we need to form a new American party. Not going to happen. The best thing to do is to still vote Republican, but to have enough balls to protest that Republican when they do something you don't like so that you push them right. To have enough balls to go, look, you better stand up for us or we will primary you. That is how you do it. That is what we need to do as a nation if we want a win for liberty. Would you vote Republican and push them further right and vote for the most liberty-loving Republicans you can find? If you have a bunch of Republicans up on a stage and it's a choice between Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, Chris Christie, you vote for Ted Cruz. You don't have to love everything Ted Cruz does. You can say, oh, he's got an ugly face and he looks like the Zodiac Killer. Fine. But you vote for him because what other options do you have? Oh, but his wife works for Goldman Sachs. I know. But what other option do you have? Really, I'd love someone like a Mike Lee or a Rand Paul in there. Or a Thomas Massey. That would be terrific. Huge wins. They're still not perfect, but that's huge. Those guys would be huge. But the thing is if we're going to get to the point where we can get those guys in, we have to make it known that us, the conservative base, and I include libertarians in that. I know, oh, we're not the... Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Okay, you want smaller government? Yeah. Okay, you're on our side. Or the moderate... Oh, I'm a moderate Republican. No, but do you want less government? Yes. Okay, you're on our side. Even neocons, some of them, I despise most neocons, but there are a few who are actually somewhat open-minded, and we need to sway them. We need to bring them in. Just to win right now. It's not about your tiffs with people on the right. It's about, do you want less government? Yes. Okay. How much less? Doesn't matter. But how much? It doesn't matter. When we get there, we get there. Oh, but that's not the best plan. What other plans you got? That's the only one that can actually work at this point. You know how I know that? Because it did with Donald Trump. A bunch of people held their nose and voted for him, and guess what? It was a big win for liberty. Not because Donald Trump has been such a great governing president. You know, he spent a bunch of money. He didn't really oppose lockdowns like he should. He hasn't started any new wars, but he's certainly not ended any. But, oh, and by the way, abortion's still legal, all that stuff. But it was a big win because he was a middle finger to the system, you see. And because he did get some things passed that wouldn't have gotten passed otherwise. Like big tax cuts. Like huge deregulation. Because people held their noses. And they voted for the wild card. Let's keep voting for wild cards.